For weeks, you guys have been asking for our desert island speaker. Well, batten down the hatches, dig up your favorite castaway memes because we're about to set sail. Before we get started, I want to thank today's sponsor, Keeps. Did you know that 2 out of 3 men will experience some form of hair loss by the time they're in their mid-30s? I'm not saying this to disparage anyone, because there is no shame in losing your hair. I didn't even make it to my 30s before my hair started to thin. But just because 60% of men may lose their hair doesn't mean we have to take it lying down. We can do something about it with Keeps. With Keeps, I was able to get the care I needed to treat my thinning hair without having to leave my home, visit a doctor, even go to a pharmacy, thanks to Keeps' subscription-based service. After more than a year, I am happy with the results. And no, I didn't get a hair transplant. This is all mine. I am so grateful that I found a plan that worked for me to reverse my thinning hair and even stimulate new hair growth. And I believe it can work for you too. Hair loss stops with Keeps. Try it for yourself. To get 50% off your first order, go to keeps.com/Andrew Robinson or just click the link in the description. That's keeps.com/Andrew Robinson. Thank you again to Keeps for sponsoring this video. And now back to the review. Now, the Concept 50 is a two-way rear-ported tower speaker that shares some of its design and cabinet technology from the brand's flagship, the Concept 500. But despite its smaller size, the Concept 50 works great in larger spaces and is incredibly well constructed. It possesses the brand's trademark woofer-tweeter woofer driver layout, and it uses a pair of 5-inch woofers and a 0.9-inch soft dome tweeter. These 3 drivers, along with its inert cabinet and rear-facing port, give it a reported frequency response of 42 Hz to 30 kilohertz. Like most Q Acoustic speakers we've tested, the 50 isn't that difficult to drive. With a nominal impedance of 6 ohms and dipping to just below 4, as little as 25 watts of total power will get these things going, though for absolute best results, 50 watts is what I recommend. We used everything from AV receivers like the Onkyo RZ50, modest integrateds like our Audiolab 6000A Play, on up to costlier options such as the Marantz Model 40N and the new SUG 700 Mark II from Technics. While esoteric drivers are sexy, not to mention an easy sell, a speaker's construction and build quality is a bigger difference maker in its overall sound quality, and Q Acoustics have gone to great lengths with their concept line to make their cabinets as quiet as possible. I'm not going to go into all the geeky details. There are links in the description for that. Just know that when it comes to controlling resonances that will color what it is you're hearing, the 50 outperforms even the almost $10,000 Elysian 4 from Wharfdale. This attention to detail inside the cabinet is rewarded by the speaker's in-room frequency response. Running a quick sweep 20 to 20 revealed an incredibly flat response from about 100 Hz on up. There is a rise in the bass starting around 200 Hz, though you can bring that into better alignment with careful placement or by simply plugging the ports. Now, I wouldn't classify the 50 as a bass-heavy speaker, and the measurements confirm this. So in smaller to medium-sized rooms, it's possible the 50 will have enough bass presence for most listeners. But if you're in a larger room like ours, its roll-off starting around 50 Hz means a subwoofer is recommended for full-range playback. But from about 50 Hz on up, the Concept 50 is among the best we have ever tested, regardless of price. But I've never gotten goosebumps from a frequency response graph, so how does the Concept 50 actually sound? When I was 19, my friend and I heard our first pair of Wilson audio speakers, and it was as if we had just witnessed like the world's greatest magic trick. Sound simply appeared as if from nowhere. It was the most effortless sound I had ever heard. Listening to the Concept 50 took me back to that moment in time. The 50s are so neutral and void of character, it's almost spooky. After hearing them, you quickly discover just how colored other speakers really are. But much like appearance, sound is subjective. You can prefer one type of sound over another, but if things like neutrality matter to you, the Concept 50 ranks among the best. The speaker's overall tone isn't warm or cool. It isn't bass heavy. It isn't bright. In fact, few speakers have managed to sound as good when listening to all types of music, and I do mean that. All types of music. It didn't matter if I was playing well-recorded jazz albums like Round Again, or popular music courtesy of Harry Styles, or more hard-driving rock like Filter or Metallica. The Concept 50 just always sounded good. From the bass on up to the treble, nothing sounded out of sorts. Artists and instruments, they always sounded as they should, with zero coloration. I cringe at the use of this cliche, nevertheless it's true. The Concept 50 is transparent to the source. That transparency, it carries over to an impressive and enveloping soundstage. For a pair of tower speakers, the 50's image like champions, second maybe only to, say, the Focal Diablo Utopia Evos in terms of overall scale and precision. That said, their dispersion and ability to create a phantom center is fantastic, something I know Kristi is going to talk about. The 50's narrow front baffle allows them to just completely disappear. Even off-axis, seated or standing, the 50 is impressive. Now, dynamically, they aren't the most lightning quick, but they are more true to life because the speaker isn't relying on any artificial enhancement in the treble department to make them seem more snappy. There is a point where I feel the Concept 50s lock in and become a little bit more captivating, but that point isn't ungodly loud like with other speakers, hovering instead around 60 dB or so. The good news is, for such a compact tower, the 50s scale and they have just zero issues playing loud without strain. The only two potential downsides worth noting for me are, for some of you, for true full-range playback, a subwoofer is going to be required, as the speaker rolls off pretty substantially after 40 hertz. Also, the speaker is very wobbly. I'm not suggesting that it's going to fall over and hurt your pets or kiddos, but if you push against it, the 50 will rock or sway. It's just one of the ways that the designers help to control vibration and reduce the potential for distortion inside the speakers. So just know that the wobble is normal. Moving on to comparisons, at just under $3,000 a pair, the Concept 50 faces a lot of competition. Starting with the SONUS FABER LUMINA 5s. Now that review is right around the corner, so I don't want to spoil it outright, but what I will say is this. The LUMINA 5 is a speaker that is not neutral, nor void of character, so this matchup is really going to come down to which speaker's performance you ultimately prefer. If you err on the side of neutrality, the Concept 50 wins, hands down. If you're one who likes a bit of top-end emphasis and perhaps some low-end boom, then I could make an argument for the Luminas, but that's all I'm going to say for right now. POLK Audio's R700 for roughly $1,000 less. The R700 is not as neutral as the Q, nor is it as inert or free of coloration, but for the money, it is the better value and the more full-range tower in this head-to-head. As for the KLH Model 5 and Monitor Audio Silver 507G, both have their strengths. Lord knows I prefer the look of the Silvers to that of the Concept 50, but if we are just talking about sound, the Q Acoustic speaker wins. In truth, the Concept 50 was as good from about 50 hertz on up through to the treble as the Mission 770s and the Wharfedale Elysian 4, both of which cost far more. Looking at other Q Acoustic speakers, specifically the larger Concept 500 and our once referenced 300 bookshelf speakers, if you already own either, stick with them. I doubt you'll experience appreciable benefits to truly justify spending the money and time to get the new 50s. But if this isn't you, I'd save your money and space and get the 50s. They are every bit as good as the 300 and minus some bass output and scale, equal in many ways to the larger 500, but for half the price. I'm just going to come right out and say it. The Q Acoustic Concept 50 ranks among the best loudspeakers that I have ever heard. Full stop. And no, they're not good for the money or good for their class. They're just good, period. The problem with the 50 is that they aren't really flashy. They aren't exciting in that they're made from esoteric materials, and they're not bound to be splashed across the cover of whatever hi-fi mag is still clinging to life these days, which is why I feel that they're unlikely to induce a sense of gotta have it, you know, the FOMO from audiophiles. And as a result, they're probably going to get passed over, which is a shame, but also quite the commentary on what the audiophile hobby is really arguably all about these days. But if you really love music and you want to enjoy music at a truly high level, the Concept 50 is about as good as it gets. So that's it. That is now my review of Q Acoustics Concept 50 tower speaker. But all right, Kristi, what'd you think?
I love this speaker.
Yeah.
This is the speaker I want to listen to all the time.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the T.
Oh,
no, seriously. Everything sounds good on these speakers.
Yeah.
They are by far the most clear speakers I've heard without a center channel, and maybe even with a center channel. Mm-hmm. I mean, are there other speakers that I still love and enjoy listening to? Mm-hmm. yes.
Okay.
It is possible to like more than one thing. But I don't think that there are any other speakers that I always want to have hooked back up more than these. And primarily the reason is because I don't have to struggle to understand even the hardest to understand dialogue with the Q Acoustic Concept 50s. And for me, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't really like about them is the bass, that chrome.
Oh, the feet.
The half moon sort of. It's just looks so cheap, and I know you said that it's because reasons. I don't know.
I mean, to be fair, I think the looseness, that wobble, that is by design. Now, I'm not saying that you need to have the crescent moon chromoly bass to do that. I'm saying that is likely a design they had to come up with so that the wobble didn't result in the speaker completely tipping over, because the wobble is very much part of the speaker's design. But I'm with you. I love this speaker probably about as much as you do, to be honest. What I don't like about it is that it's so good that I feel it needs to appear and feel more special.
I agree.
And unfortunately, every Q Acoustic speaker, within reason, look the exact same.
I totally agree. I really wish that they would push the envelope a little bit more when it comes to their style choices.
Yeah.
I would love to see them come up with a few different finishes.
I completely agree. I mean, we had the Concept 500s, and you know that we used the 300s for almost 2 years as a reference point. And the reason for that is because those speakers are legitimately really, really good. Their style notwithstanding, they just always perform. Now, we ultimately went with the 300s over the 5s because the 5s were just so massive, in my opinion. They were big. And I know
especially in our room.
In our room at that time, yeah. They probably look great in here now. But I know that was a stretch for the brand because they had kind of made a name for themselves in the budget arena, and then here comes a $7,000-ish tower. I don't know how well it was received. I know everyone that I've spoken to that has heard the 500s and subsequently the 300s, they speak very highly of those speakers, and they should. They're really, really good. But I think this new, more compact 50, and is it the 30, the bookshelf, which we haven't heard, I think they have managed to take everything that I've loved about the 500 and the 300 and put it into arguably one design, because you don't have to fuss with stands, but it doesn't take up any more room than it actually takes up a little bit less room than the 300, but it doesn't sound any smaller, or I don't want to say it doesn't sound different because we don't have the 300s anymore. But it doesn't, it encapsulates all of the things that I loved about both of those speakers while addressing, minus some of the style stuff, all of the things that I wish they didn't have. And so for me, I think at almost $3,000 a pair, the Concept 50 here is arguably the best speaker they make.
Oh, I totally agree.
Yeah.
And I was going to say the only thing I didn't agree with you in your review was your suggestion that if somebody is a current owner of the 500 or the 300, that they should stick with them. And while I am typically not an advocate for spending more money when you don't need to, I personally think the 50 is better than both of those speakers.
Wow.
Partly because of things that we've already talked about, like the stands and the size. Just I prefer this form factor in general. But I do think that these sound better to me.
Going a little bit off memory.
Yeah, of course you have to go off memory, but we did have the 300s for a long time.
Oh, forever.
And I never thought they were as fun to listen to as these.
To me, I think Q Acoustics' decision to go with two smaller 5-inch drivers as opposed to, I believe the 300 had a 6-inch driver and the 500 has two 6-inch drivers. I think the smaller drivers result in a slightly tighter, more controlled sound. And the fact that the mid-range is almost ruler flat means that that intelligibility throughout the vocal range, I agree with you. It may be just a hair better than the higher up models. But if you're one that's like, I don't want to use a sub, and so I want as much bass output, good bass output, as I can possibly get, I do think that the 300s and the 500s are going to do that for you. But if you're like Kristi and even myself, where it's a little bit more about accuracy and agility and detail, I agree. The 50 it's in the butter zone. It's the better speaker.
Yeah. I mean, I personally am not the type that often feels like a speaker needs a sub. That's just not the kind of sound I'm attracted to, because so often speakers, for me, just don't get the balance right.
Yeah.
And so I would rather have less bass than sloppy bass.
Okay.
So for me, these are just the Goldilocks of the entire...
We finally found one.
The entire Q Acoustic line, and maybe out of any speaker we've heard. They are just exceptional. And all we can do is A, hope that people give them a chance.
Yeah.
And B, if they decide to give them a chance, that they can actually get them, because that has been an unfortunate problem. I'm sure a lot of it is out of their control. I truly hope that they find success with this particular speaker, because they deserve it. It's
really, really, really good. It really is. And I'm with you on I just hope people, A, can find it, experience it. And then, because I think this is one of those speakers where, like I say in the conclusion, like, I don't know if it's ever going to captivate visually or in the mind's eye of the community the way a lot of speakers do. But man, dim the lights, put on your favorite album, be it streaming or vinyl or whatever. I mean, you're going to have to spend a lot more to do outright better. And even then, I would hesitate to say that you are getting better than this. Well, that is now our review of Q Acoustics' fabulous Concept 50 tower loudspeaker. What did you guys think? Let us know down in the comments below. Question of the day for you. It's pretty simple. What is your desert island speaker? We told you ours. You tell us yours. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Go ahead and ring that bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. If you use any of the links Kristi left for you down below, know that that is a great way that you've continued to show your support for this channel and the work that we do here, along with the super thanks and becoming members and simply just liking and sharing this video. All of those ways help the channel, and we really, really appreciate it. Follow me on Instagram at Recovering Audiophile. Oh, and one more. Special thank you to Keeps for sponsoring this episode. To get 50% off your first order, go to keeps.com/Andrew Robinson. Thank you again, Keeps, for all of your support. And that's it for us today. So remember, the only person who has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next video.